Hey guys, I've got 3 more complimentary plays for your Thursday tournament card and some tournament betting advice as well. But before I get to it, let me just take a quick moment to bitch and moan because I've got nobody else to bitch and moan to. So you have to certainly be my audience for that. I don't know where you are in the country, but I'm outside of the Philadelphia area still because I can't escape. Because tomorrow's 13 weeks since my surgery, a surgery that I should have recovered in 4 to 6 weeks from, and I still can't get better. At this point, I've really just kind of accepted the fact that I think by the end of the NHL playoffs, I think by the end of the hockey season, the postseason, I think by then maybe I'll be finally recovered. But today it's sunny. Today the lawn service showed up to put down the pre-emergent, to get rid of the weeds, to get rid of the crabgrass. And then my wife tells me that on Tuesday there might be a nor'easter coming through that might dump 5 to 6 inches of snow. Seriously? I gotta escape. Okay, listen, here's my tournament betting advice. And this is something that I think that handicappers should adhere to and gamblers damn right well better adhere to. If you haven't bet in the Summit League, in the Western Athletic Conference, in the MAC all season long, well, just because there's a plethora of games in these tournaments every single day, you shouldn't be dipping your toes in those conferences either. If you're not familiar and if you have not followed these teams and these conferences all season long, just skip them. Because there's no value to be found in them just because suddenly you think you're an expert because there were games yesterday and games today and games tomorrow and suddenly you think you have your finger on the pulse of those teams. That's not the way it works. I can tell you that after 20 some years. The other problem with these tournaments at this stage of the season is, and what makes it so hard for gamblers out there, because I know, because it makes it doubly hard for handicappers. Listen, this is how my night went last night, okay? I started studying today's games about 7:30 Eastern time last night because as the day games started going final, I started to have to reading all the recaps, started studying the matchups, were then becoming available with the lines that were already available for today's action. But you know as well as I do, there were games that were tipping off at 11:30 Eastern time last night. There were lines that weren't posted on the bulk of today's matchups, about half of today's games, until about 11:30 Eastern time this morning. Well, it's a nonstop process. You've got to keep handicapping late into the night, then again in the morning, then you've got to reevaluate and look at the pairings, and that's what you do Wednesday night into Thursday, tonight into Friday, Friday into Saturday, Saturday into Sunday. That's what makes these 5 days in the college conference tournaments more difficult than any 5-day stretch in the entire season. People say, oh, it's the same thing for when you get to the big dance. No, it isn't, because we know the matchups in advance. We know the lines in advance. These games, you don't know what's going to happen. And the other thing that you have to be so aware of in these games, and I'll use this game that I had last night. My best bet yesterday, which I won again, and you got for the half price play of the day, was Mississippi State, just destroying LSU. They were like a 6-point favorite. They were up by 15 points before you even could say boo, and they won by 27 points, easy win and cover. Okay. Mississippi State won, and today they're taking on Alabama. Alabama didn't play last night. And I think there's some validity in the statement where if you were to say that a team that plays an opening round game, a first round game, a play-in game in these tournaments, that gets one game under its belt versus a team that has a first round or opening round bye, certainly has a little bit of advantage because on a neutral court, that gives them one up in terms of getting the rust off. Certainly that applies, but then you have to look at the teams involved. Mississippi State and LSU were cellar dwellers in the SEC. Mississippi State lost twice to Alabama for a reason during the regular season. And even though the Crimson Tide were a lousy team down the stretch, they're still the better team. So just because Mississippi State won by 27 points last night doesn't necessarily mean that they are anywhere worth considering today as a play against Alabama. And you see that throughout these conferences. And it's something to just be so leery of. And to be so cautious about as these conferences continue. I often use the Wednesday games and even the Thursday games as the sit-back time to evaluate. Like the Sun Belt Conference, I used this conference many, many times this season, but none of the games yesterday really had much value to me, but I wanted to see how Troy did. I wanted to see how some of these other teams did and to evaluate because as you in my case, review what happens yesterday, you have to always look up or consider, well, what happened yesterday, what happened tonight? That might set up a play Saturday or Sunday. Yeah, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of time and it's what Joe Blow average gambler doesn't have the time to do, but Again, this is how I make my living, and this is how, I make money, and this is my job. And that's the difference really ultimately between the casual gambler and a guy who does this for a living, because, there is no other excuse. This is what you do morning, noon, and night at this time of season. Okay, let's get to your complimentary plays. The first play here, I want to talk about Old Dominion and Marshall. Now, Marshall was a team that I've talked about many times this season, and Marshall is a team that, again, when they're on the road, I like to go against them. And as I said in yesterday's video report, when I say neutral court, just say road game, because it's one and the same. Because if you're not sleeping in your same bed, it doesn't matter. It is a road game. And guys, I just want to do a quick search here and just double check. I meant to do this before the video report started, but I forgot. You got to love these live video reports, because I'm not about to restart the damn thing. Well, let me do a search, and I just want to double check where the line is. Of course, it would help if I was not in baseball on our site and I was actually looking on the okay. Wow, that line still certainly has gone up. Okay, so in this particular game, this is a game that I was originally going to use as my best bet today, because the overnight and early morning price had Old Dominion at 3.5. But this line jumped up to 4.5 within 45 minutes of going live this morning. And then now it's pretty much 5. But still, I like Old Dominion in this contest. Now, Old Dominion is a team that did not play last night, but Marshall did. Marshall last night took care of Florida Atlantic, 89-74. Big deal. Florida Atlantic, one of the worst teams in the conference. But this Marshall team, 4-11 on the road this year, and this Marshall team did not play well down the stretch. Now, these two played twice during the regular season. The first meeting, I had an ultra-rare 20-dime play on Marshall at home. They needed overtime to win 90-86. Barely covering as a 3.5-point chalk in a game that was 4 earlier in the day. In that game, Old Dominion, a team that's known more for its defensive prowess, went crazy, scoring at that point a season high with those 86 points in overtime. When they played in Norfolk just about 3 weeks ago, here on the video report, I told you that Old Dominion was to play. They were going to get big-time revenge, and that's exactly what happened. They drilled Marshall 86-65. Now, in that rematch, Stevie Browning, the senior guard for Marshall, who had 22 points last night against Florida Atlantic, did not play because of back spasms. And Marshall's been nicked up here with various minor injuries to a number of players here down the home stretch. Old Dominion just played at UTEP on last Thursday. And it was a game that I used UTEP as a 15-dime best bet. Another team, the Miners, that I've talked about repeatedly. My God, guys, I got to tell you something. It is hot as hell here under the lights here today in my office. Whew, what a sweat. Anyway, I feel like I'm getting grilled by the grand jury. No, I didn't do it. Anyway, UTEP was a game I used as my underdog game of the month. They were 3.5-point favorite. They had the game. Then they were called for a foul. Old Dominion went to the line, hit 2 free throws with 1.2 seconds to left, and they won that game 62-61 last Thursday night. And that was a huge win because it earned them the 3rd seed in this Conference USA tournament. And it gave them their 5th straight win, and it gave them a revenge win, and it was a hell of a win because they had to travel over 2,000 miles to get to El Paso from Norfolk for that game. So then they followed up on Saturday, Texas San Antonio, and they were lethargic, and they got drilled in that game. But I'll tell you what, that game meant nothing. It was an absolute nothing game because they got the revenge game win no more than 48 hours earlier after that long travel thing. So I let that game slide. I give them a pass on that game. Tonight, I think you find Old Dominion a focused effort. This is an Old Dominion team that just a couple of weeks ago went into Birmingham, snapped UAB's 24-game home conference winning streak with a double-digit win. This is an Old Dominion team that has upped its offensive game over the past 3.5 weeks of the regular season. And this is an Old Dominion team that I think that will get the job done tonight because Marshall, again, scores almost 90 points a game, gives up almost 90 points a game. So I like Old Dominion, but the reason I didn't use them as my best bet and got off that game and got on the game in the SEC tournament for a 2nd straight night instead, as I'm instead going to take a look at the Texas A&M game against Vanderbilt, is because of that line move going up from 3.5 to 4.5 and even 5 in some places, but I still think the Monarchs are the way to go. Another team that finished the regular season with the flourish and put themselves in bubble consideration is Providence. The Friars have won 6 in a row, and they've averaged 74.3 points in the process to improve to 20-11 on the season, 10-8 in Big East play, the best the best conference still in basketball, I think still better than the Big 12. I mean, I really think that if Providence takes care of business tonight against Creighton, that they can wrap themselves up a Big Dance invite. Now, part of this 6-game winning streak, they won in Omaha 68-66 back on February 22nd on a shot with 2.2 seconds left in that game. The Jays had actually taken a 13-point lead early in the contest thanks to a 24-3 run. Then Providence scored the final 6 points of the first half, went on an 11-2 run to start the second half to get back into that game. The Jays in that contest did not shoot particularly well. They blew a 4-point lead late. And listen, the Jays are not the same team they were before they lost their starting point guard, Maurice Watson Jr., back on January 16th. Since that time, 5-7 straight up. They lost their last 3 at the road by 16 points at Villanova, by 6 at Seton Hall, by 8 Saturday at Marquette. Remember, Chuck Ryan had a monster play on Marquette in that game, another 50-dime winner. So Providence, though, surprisingly, as a 2.5-point underdog in that game, in tonight's game. I don't get it. I like Providence to win this game outright because Creighton has shown that they have simply been an inconsistent and unworthy team to back in Vegas. So Providence to win this game outright is going to be the selection I'm going with in this particular contest. Your other game, I'm going to go with Iowa to pull off the upset of Indiana. Yeah, I know the Hoosiers finally played a good game in their last game out, but this is a Hoosiers team, despite that win, 96-92 over Ohio State to close the regular season. Big deal, because like I had said earlier in this video report, now they beat Ohio State. But what did Ohio State do last night? Ohio State up 15-5 early against Rutgers. The Scarlet Knights, number 14 seed in the Big Ten tournament, came back and beat them. So I devalue that win by the Hoosiers against Ohio State in their season finale on Saturday because of how poorly Ohio State played down the stretch and how poorly they played last night. Otherwise, prior to that win against Ohio State, again, this is a Hoosiers team that had lost 8 of its previous 10 games, a Hoosiers team that was 2-7 straight up on the Big Ten highway this season, a Hoosiers team that lost at Iowa 96-90 in overtime during their long regular season meeting back on February 21st. That was a foul-filled game, and I dare you to say that 3 times quickly. 35 fouls whistled on Indiana in that game. 4 players for the Hoosiers fouling out. Now, you're not going to have that many fouls whistled tonight in the Verizon Center because obviously you're not going to get the benefit of the home officiating calls since it's a neutral court game. And you're not going to have Iowa going to the line 47 times as they did in that home game, and they hit 39, and that was really the key to their victory because Indiana only went 19. But some of the metrics are still the same because Iowa is a better inside team. So you're still going to have Iowa still having the advantage and probably getting more chances to get cheap gimme points at the free throw line anyway. Iowa closed with a 90-79 revenge win against Penn State on Sunday. And as you know, that was a 15-dime best bet from yours truly that you got for half price on Sunday. And they had closed the regular season with 2 straight road wins as well, rallying from 9 points down in the final 4 minutes to win at Wisconsin, beating up Maryland in the game before that in College Park as well. And that game against Wisconsin was pretty damn impressive because the Badgers had won 20 of their previous 21 games in Madison before that. So an Iowa team that was very streaky. They've won 4 in a row. Before that, they lost 3 in a row. Before that, they won 3 in a row. Before that, they lost 3 in a row. They're on one of those upward trends, and they have put themselves in bubble consideration as well. They're 18-13 on the season. They're 10-8 in the Big Ten. Tom Crean, the Indiana coach, 3-8 lifetime in the Big Ten tournament. So I like Iowa in this particular contest. Let me just look at some of my other notes here, see if there are any other games that I considered. Yesterday I told you in this particular context that, I thought that Massachusetts might be a consideration play against St. Joe's. I lean a little toward UCLA. It's a big number. USC beat them the first time. UCLA beat the hell out of USC in the revenge game. Bruins bring a 9-game winning streak into this game against USC tonight. USC certainly didn't play well against Washington last night. Again, not one of my favorite games, but I lean a little toward the Bruins as well tonight. They've been playing some damn good defensive ball. And listen, during this 9-game winning streak, they go to Tucson. They beat Arizona. They return to Pauley Pavilion. They beat the hell out of USC. And they also beat Oregon and rally in the final couple minutes to get a revenge-fueled win against the Ducks. So they're playing well. And how ironic, because if UCLA wants to win the Pac-12 tournament, they win tonight, and they may have to play Arizona in the semis. And should they beat the Wildcats, if the Arizona advances, then they might have to play Oregon in the championship game should the Ducks win the next couple of days. So it's kind of an interesting tournament. I think it's the best of all the tournaments and possible matchups that you may see in the next couple of days. So lean a little, but this is a big, big number. You know, if USC had played better last night, if USC had done what it should have done and blown out Washington by a double-digit margin, this would have been a more competitive line. You know, at 7.5, I probably would have told you to go ahead and go UCLA. But at 9.5, man, you're looking at a big number, neutral site game. So lean a little toward UCLA, but not enough to make it an official recommended play. So that'll do it, guys. I wish you well, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow when we do this one more time.